So maybe let's then begin.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to sixth webcast of ViVentor about peer-to-peer and our investments and platform itself. Today is a special installment of our webcast, as today's topic is the new ownership of ViVentor and what plans new owners have and how it will affect investors, loan originators, and what we can expect from the deal. And today, to talk to me on this topic, together with me, is Mr. Luc van Laarhoven, Chief Investment Officer of Gielen Group, who was present all the time during this transaction, and will be also, how to say, managing as from the shareholder point of view, ViVentor as a company. So welcome to the webcast, Luc.
Thank you very much, Andrius. Happy to be here. I hope well, as soon as it's allowed, that we actually can fly over to Lithuania. But at this time, it's nice to be like this.
Yeah, hopefully this will be pretty soon. Maybe as a starting point, it would be good that, Luc, you told a few words about yourself, who you are, what's your professional experience, and what role you play in the Gielen Group.
Okay, well, my professional career is a banking career. I have been always a banking professional, mainly running treasury operations, where I once started with ING as a derivatives trader. Later, I moved from Holland to Luxembourg, where I worked for German banks. My last role as a banker was being the head of capital markets for Deutsche Postbank in Luxembourg. They were the center of competence there for the Postbank group for all small and medium-sized enterprises. That I stopped in 2014, and then I started for myself as a consultant and also advising people on investments, and mainly my contacts at that time were family offices, asset managers, etc. I've been based in Luxembourg for over 20 years. Luxembourg is a very, very interesting place from an asset management perspective. It is the second asset manager globally. And I have a lot of contacts in that area in Luxembourg. And that is also why I at one stage decided to start working for myself, because I wanted to touch other asset classes than just the asset classes I have been working in with the bank. Apart from that, also with the changing of the whole regulatory environment within the banking, I was looking for a different challenge. I got into contact with the Gielen Group, or actually with Atlantis Financiers, beginning of this year. And well, speaking to the management of Atlantis, it's the management of Atlantis is quite young, and they're like I would say fintech entrepreneurs, and they have set up an extremely nice company. I must say, I was impressed when I saw it with my own professional background, but they reached a little bit their critical mass, and they were looking at someone to help them in order to expand. They don't want to sell what they've created, but they want to build on what they've created. They want to make it nicer and bigger and more solid. Well, that is a challenge that I thought was well, very, very interesting for me. And I started to talk with the management, and we kind of took apart the Atlantis Financiers. See, okay, what are you actually doing here, and what is so successful? And basically, we discovered that they had a lot of how do you call it, business processes that they were very, very good in. Then what we did is we started to develop those business processes into business units, and we started to create a group so that we could actually every process, like the credit scoring that they do within Atlantis, we turned it into a product and we are actually selling that product in the form of paylegs. Then they are very busy with real estate. They use a lot of collateral, of course, when they finance the small, medium-sized enterprises. They always make sure that they're fully collateralized. One of the best collaterals you can have, at least in Holland for sure, is real estate. So they have got a very big competence on real estate that we turned into a company called Capilegs. Customer due diligence, who am I doing my business with? Very, very important, of course, in this business as well. And that is something that we also created a new company for, called Customer Diligence, which is being marketed at the moment as well. So from this one company, we divided into all kind of different business units. And setting up these business units, we used some investment vehicles that we had already within the Gielen Group present, and we created other companies. Then all of a sudden we didn't expect that to happen, but yeah, we were as surprised as the rest of the world with the corona and the effect it had. But it also offered us some opportunity, because then all of a sudden we were approached by ViVentor, actually by you, Andrius, and you told us that there was a change of idea within the DFI group in how they wanted to go ahead with ViVentor. They had certain ideas about what was happening in the market, and they changed their strategy a bit. You came to us as we were the biggest loan originator on the platform, and you asked, like, would we maybe be interested in buying or getting more involved with ViVentor. We never ever considered that, but we were already very impressed with ViVentor, because we took a great part of our funding, of course, via ViVentor. And when that opportunity came, of course, we need to give it a serious thought, and that's what we did. And yeah, and you introduced us to the DFI group, and we started the negotiations. We started to look more into detail into your IP. We did a proper IT audit. What you had to offer. We looked at the management. We looked at the team. And for us, it was just a perfect match. It was actually the building stone that was missing in what we were trying to create. So in that respect, it was for us, yeah, a very welcoming venture.
Yeah. So rolling back a few steps to this beginning of the story. Yes, coronavirus and this outbreak and the crisis it caused, of course, did a lot of damage to the businesses, but also brought in some opportunities. So stories that within DFI, the strategy of ViVentor was always to grow and expand this business. However, when the crisis came, of course, everybody had to review and revisit their strategies, and to the idea for that came like crystallized within DFI was that they would prefer to concentrate on the core of the business, which was lending worldwide. So they were not particularly looking to sell ViVentor, but I was kind of given the idea that if there would be an interested buyer, they would be interested to sell. So of course, my position as a manager of the company, and I wish to remain that together with my team, was to see ViVentor growing. And from that perspective, I approached you as Atlantis as one of the biggest partners, and that was the natural first choice. And that's it. And then the story unfolded. We did we did the negotiation part, we did the due diligence part, and so we have what we have right now. So also the whole team and myself are very excited to see what will happen and what we will do together with you under new ownership, and what we can make of it. So that brings us also to a question that we might also touch upon today is what motives and you had for buying ViVentor, how it fit within your strategy, and what actually you expect of it, what you wish to do with it after buying.
Well, yeah, well, maybe I was too early before when I said it, but it was for us when the opportunity came. As I was trying to explain, we were basically taking apart Atlantis Financiers, well, not taking it apart, but we were looking at where are our competences, and we were turning all those competences into business units from a group we were building, the Gielen Group. And of course, the funding is very, very important. And we get a great part of our funding from ViVentor. So when the opportunity was brought to us from, would you actually be interested in acquiring ViVentor? Of course, we wanted immediately to very seriously look at that opportunity, and it fitted very, very well. Now, we were not so scared by Corona, by crisis, etc. Why not? There you have to understand a little bit about the background of Atlantis. We, of course, are an alternative finance institution, and we normally only deal with people that, they cannot go to a bank. They have problems getting finance elsewhere, so that's why they come to a player like Atlantis. Yeah, we look at a company different. We have our own credit scoring idea. We make sure that we have collaterals in place. We just, have a different business approach, I would say, than a traditional bank. We are smaller, we are more flexible. There's a lot of aspects that make us it. But also, we are used for that, doing business in, I would say, complicated or difficult or just unusual situations. So we like it when opportunities like this come to us in times like this, because we see an opportunity. We don't see a problem, we see an opportunity. And we were aware, of course, of you. Well, you knew the management of Atlantis longer than that you know me, but the relationship was already quite good, and we were impressed with how you actually were running ViVentor. I think seriously say that. We also are aware that ViVentor is in a very far process of being regulated by getting a license from the Latvian regulator. They were all aspects that for us, made it a very, very interesting proposition. Like we are, of course, also, Atlantis is also a regulated entity in Holland. That means we are regulated, but we are not reporting. So we're not like a bank. We don't need any licenses in that sense for what we're doing, but we are completely regulated, because in Holland, you cannot be involved in any type of business like we are without applying to the rules. So, and apart from that, we have our own moral and ethical values in doing business, and that's why we, where ViVentor is concerned, and you have a lot of clients, and your investors are consumers, businesses, family offices, all alike, and to get a license from the regulator will, I think, build on your trust that you deserve, and we are convinced by the way that you've been doing business over the last 5 years, and how we know that you do business, that you will achieve that, and that will be, I think, well, it is a gray area for the whole peer-to-peer industry. There is not really a license that fits. But the Latvian regulator, we know, is very supportive of this type of business. I think it's the way forward. Traditional banking is changing. Fintech, peer-to-peer lending, other opportunities like crowdfunding, you call it. It's just the way that finance is going. I have seen a lot of evolution in banking through my career, and I'm convinced that this is the way forward. But we also think, it is especially where the internet is concerned, it is a little bit of a wild west. And we want to make sure that people, when they come to a platform like ViVentor, that they feel secure, that there are no questions about, who is behind it, whatever, etc. And therefore, the fact that you are in this far process of getting regulated for us was definitely a plus. And we are convinced that the way you do business, you will eventually achieve getting your regulatory permit.
Yeah, on my side, I can also say that it is the path that we wish to follow from many angles, and the way we see within the company how this business should be grown and what is the best path for it to grow is, of course, first of all, a good regulatory background for it, so that it builds more trust for ourselves in the product we're selling, and also for investor community. Transparency and openness to investors is number two, probably most important thing, that we always want to be open and say as much as possible to investors, so that they can get the best investment advice that they can. And I mean, not necessarily advice, but to make an investment decision would have as much information as is possible. And of course, later on, to protect investors' interest, because there are, this market is highly competitive. And of course, now, even especially after this crisis, it's clearly shown that return rates are not the top competitive angle that we could have. I mean, it's not the winning platform is not the one that gets the highest returns. The winning platform is the one that protects their investors' interest the most. And I saw somewhere recently a quote, I don't remember who wrote it, somewhere in the blogs probably, or in the chats, that you should not be worrying about return on your money. You should be better worrying on return of your money. So especially when you're investing into lending products. So yes, so this definitely stays, and the strategy that we have laid out before is continuing towards license, towards more transparency, and towards more protection and of the interests of investors. And this also brings us to another topic for discussion. I mean, after the release of this public information about the new owners, we received quite a lot of questions that were basically revolving about the same topic. And the topic is where do we draw the line, and how do we separate the businesses of ViVentor and Atlantis, since they are now owned by the same group, and in general is some investors see that there might be some potential conflict of interest here. So maybe we can answer both of that, but maybe Luc, you can start. What is your opinion on this?
Of course. Well, yeah. First, let me go back a little bit to what you said before, because I think that it's very, very interesting what you're saying there. Do not worry so much about the return on your money, but worry about the return of your money. And let me first of all tell you a little bit about how Atlantis has become big and how we've done business. We have, I think, in the history of ViVentor, which been established in 2013. I think we pay, on average, we pay one of the highest rates, and we are also the biggest loan originator on the platform since the beginning, basically. We have always made sure that we return the money, and we look after the interests of our investors. That is, we look after the money of our investors like we would look after our own money. If we would do wrong, we would ruin our own business, and it's simply what we're used to do. So, yeah, going forward, what do we want with ViVentor, and do I see any conflicts of interest? Well, I do not see a conflict of interest. If anything, I think investors should see that if they look at the track record of Atlantis, we have never had any defaults or not paying or kept money in transit or anything. If the deal is done and the borrower returns the money, we return the money to the investors. We will keep on doing that. And of course, with us being the owner of ViVentor now, we could not, it becomes even more important to watch after the interest of our investors. At the same time, I like to say, me personally, banking career 22 years, all I've done ever in my life is investing. If I don't trust anything, if I don't feel good about what I do, I leave it. And I would advise anybody on the platform, if you don't feel happy with putting money in Atlantis, you're free to choose another loan originator, because ViVentor is just a platform. It brings the investor and the loan originators together. ViVentor does a very, very thorough due diligence on everyone who enters that platform. We know that because we've gone through it ourselves. And they've done that for all the loan originators there. We also know there are some very interesting loan originators in the pipeline. We know that because we've done the due diligence. I didn't know it before, but I can tell you now but that is something that I cannot say because that's Andrius' business. But if those materialize, I'm pretty convinced that there will be more choice for investors going forward. That is important. It's important for an investor that you have a platform like ViVentor where you can choose. And we are just one of the choices. Should you feel comfortable with us, that is up to you. But of course, we cannot deny, as we are, if we have having the ownership of ViVentor, we are a very, very trustworthy partner. Otherwise, same time, I have to repeat that all the other loan originators on the platform have gone through the same due diligence as we have done, and I would trust all those parties as well. I don't know what to say more. I can understand, it was something that, of course, also gone through my head, like would people think of conflicts of interest? ViVentor is not a bank, it's a platform. Within a bank, you would speak at one stage from, you have Chinese walls between management of separate entities. That will be the same here. Like you, Andrius, you are the management of ViVentor. I have absolutely, although we will try to bring some of the Gielen business ethics and business moral and culture into the whole group, we are not doing the management of ViVentor. We can't do it as good as you do it, and we like you to continue that, of course. So you are talking to the regulator. You have to make sure that you fulfill all the criteria that the Latvian regulators ask you. And some of these will be to make sure that there is no advantage for any of the parties. I wouldn't personally see where the advantage should come from, because you don't place the money of your investors, they do it themselves. And if they say, listen, we like the platform, but we don't want to invest in Atlantis, they can just untick the box Atlantis and say, well, forget about Atlantis and choose one of the other ones. So, do I see a problem? No. Do I think that people should feel worried about us? I think no. I think in the contrary, with my background, if I would be on this platform, I would say, well, that's amazing. The one loan originator on this platform is so happy they actually now have the ownership. Yeah. It's
just to also reflect on my end, so it also very well connects with the key strategy points that I laid out before. So if we talk about investors first, so this it is in our best interest of everyone to make sure that we keep investors' interest in priority, because if we don't, we will lose them. And that means that Atlantis will lose investors, other loan originators will lose investors, and eventually ViVentor might go out of business. So for us, it's critical to make sure that we are always fair for our investors, and we are not making any unfair advantage to one loan originator or another. So that's a fact already.
Yeah, but okay, if I can just interrupt one thing, Andrius, because investors, of course, are very important. Without the investors, there is no platform. But on the other side, without loan originators, there's also no platform. If I would be a loan originator on ViVentor, and I would have the impression that there is one loan originator who gets an advantageous treatment, I would leave. And of course, that was also one of our concerns, because there are, of the DFI group, there are several loan originators present of the DFI group. We didn't see that as a problem. Like when we entered ViVentor a long time ago, we didn't see that as a problem. We just saw, okay, we're going to be one of the parties, and we will see how it developed. It developed very well for us. But at the same, I'm saying now, we want to investors to being able to keep this choice, and also, we do not want other loan originators to leave or become less interested in this platform, because that would jeopardize the choice that the investors have. So let investors and also loan originators let them trust that we will do anything to look after everybody's interest. And where our presence on the platform itself is concerned, for us, nothing changes.
Yeah, and yes, so in general, it is, once again, in my opinion, in the interests of all parties, that there is an unbiased information on the marketplace, and we will keep it that way, that's for sure. In addition to what I just said about transparency, as we noted earlier, we are completing our Q1 review of all loan originators, and we'll soon be releasing information about them with credit scores and with financial data, so that each investor can decide by himself whether to invest in that loan originator or invest into another loan originator. And finally, regulation is an ultimate factor, which means that we have to be fair, and that is the point of regulation is in general about protection of retail investors' interests. So because for professional investors, this regulation is not so much required. It's mainly for the unprofessional retail investors whom we have the most of. And for us, being regulated means that we have just literally means that we cannot make any unfair advantage on one investment object and another. So that is a fact, and we will keep it that way. But even regardless all of that, if some of investors will still feel that there is an additional risk related to that, then as you say, Luc, they're really welcome to choose which loan originators to invest in and which not to invest in. It's absolutely ultimate choice, yeah, in the hands of investors.
Well, coming back to my career path, I have only ever worked in my life when I was professionally employed by banks for regulated institutions. So, in my business, in my career, my reputation is everything. So if I have quite high moral and ethical standards, and I am a big advantage of I would say I'm a big promoter of these Chinese walls. And owning an entity doesn't mean that you interfere with its business. It would not even be allowed by the Latvian regulator, and we would never ever, of course, jeopardize the license of the regulator, because we would destroy our own business, and we're not in the business of destroying business. We're in the business of building business and building value for our partners.
Great. So I think we covered the main topic, what we wanted to cover today. That's for the discussion part. And now I suggest that we jump into the question part, because as always, we had some questions that our investors could ask upfront, so that we could make sure that we all not only answer and talk on the topics that are comfortable for us, but also to make sure that all investors' questions are answered. So we had, if I'm not mistaken, 11 questions asked. My colleague Algimantas has created even slides where he grouped them together by topic. So let me just quickly share my screen so that we can go through them. Of course, not all of them will be about this topic, what we discussed today, but nevertheless, we can go through all of them. So let's jump in. New owner of ViVentor, Barna is asking, new owner of ViVentor, what will change? What are the plans? I think we covered that in part, but maybe Luc, you can just summarize what we said once again here at this stage.
Yeah, well, summarizing it, what will change from a business point of view for the investors? Nothing. Everything will stay as it is. The only thing that will maybe change is, well, I cannot speak for the previous owner. I can only speak for ourselves. But we are a non-reporting but regulated entity in Holland, in Central European, and it's those ethical and moral standards that we want to bring within the group. So if anything will change, and anyhow we have, we respect the management of ViVentor highly, otherwise we would not have gone into this acquisition. But going forward, we will make sure that we will share the same vision of how we want to create value for our partners and create value for our investors.
And from my end, I can just reiterate that we are on a path towards regulation. We are in the final stages for the submission of the official license. We had submitted the draft for it. We will we have received some follow-up questions, which we are finalizing. Of course, we now have to reapply, introduce the information about the new ownership when we apply for the license. So that was also part of the transformation. And we are also on the path towards more transparency and more trust building for our investors. And yeah, so that's basically it. Now, some questions to the Gielen Group and Atlantis Financiers. So question number one from Andrew. Gielen Group is a holding company for Atlantis Financiers. How can you enforce contracts for loans with the group that now owns ViVentor? Basically, I can shortly answer on that, is that when investors are making investments on the ViVentor platform, they're going into a direct deal with loan originator. So it's a deal between an investor and loan originator. Of course, ViVentor as a platform is also part of the deal, but the claim owner of the deal is the investor, and ViVentor's part is a mediator part. I mean, we are representing investors when we are collecting funds from the loan originators, and we have done that already a few times when the time came. And as we previously said, it is in the interest of all parties that we are, let's say, always following up on our end of the deal, because that will show how weak or strong we are in such situations. So definitely we have even a legal obligation to enforce contracts and to have collection activities in case there are some discrepancies between loan originators and investors, because first of all, in these situations we represent interests of investors. And by acting that way, we have full power to enforce our contracts, regardless if it is a group company or it is a third-party company. We are obliged to do that. So that's written in the agreement. I think that's mostly it. Second question, anonymous. Almost all loans of Atlantis Financiers have been extended without any interest payments to investors before the extension. how long is the maximum extension? So on the platform, the setting and agreement with Atlantis Financiers for extension, I think it was 90 days, if I'm not mistaken. Luke, maybe you know in more detail about that.
It's 90 days. Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to read the question again because the first time I see the question.
So basically, the question is about extension of loans for Atlantis Financiers, and it says it means that the investor says that there is no interest, but actually we said multiple times that there is interest applied.
Yeah, of course.
And
well, I think if it is like we normally are not in the business of extending loans. Like when we speak to borrowers, we make a clear deal of the conditions of the loan arrangements, and if those conditions are not met, we will take action, and we will, and it's not because we are in the business of destroying things. No, we are in the business of looking after the interest also of our investors and our funders. We have, we work with our own funds, and we work with the funds of third parties, i.e. the money of people on the platform of ViVentor. So normally, if we have done a deal and the conditions are not met, we will immediately take action. Let there be no discussion about it. But at the moment, due to Corona, there are just special conditions which are not particular for. It's not on a micro level. It is on a macro level what we're talking here, and we are, as I said before, we are not in the business of destroying things. There are times when you just say, well, listen, it's live and let live. We have good clients that come back to us with deals, and now all of a sudden these clients, because of their clients, they need a little bit more time. But we know that their business models and everything that they do are okay, are in order. It's just a temporary thing. So that's why we agreed internally, just as most banks do, by the way, as well, and other finances, to in these difficult times that we have at the moment, to meet those people and give them a little bit more time. However, we always look at why do they need more time. And if it would have something to do completely not connected to Corona or not connected to the current market conditions, then we will act like before. But at the moment, we just have some clients where we can see, okay, this is justified to very, very justified, and that's also a moral and an ethical thing that we just have to do, to say, well, we extend a bit more. But of course, the interest is still being paid. So it's nobody here is being done wrong in any way. So we're working still with all the parameters given to us, and in everybody's interest. As I said, we are in the business of creating value for our clients and creating value for our investors, funders.
Just on my behalf also, I need to stress that the interest rate is applied to loans which are extended. So all investors are receiving interest for the loans which are extended. It's the same rate as for an original loan that has been invested into. How long is the maximum extension? If I'm not mistaken, currently we are extending loans for up to 90 days for our loan originators, and we are not looking to extend them any further. But of course, as loan originators are in the business of lending, and when the crisis like this hit us unexpectedly, and a lot of these loan originators are in the business of servicing, more problematic customers who are young companies, underbanked companies or underbanked individuals. So these are usually hit the first in such situations. So of course they need to support them if they wish to, if they see potential in that. And we as a platform and group of investors should also, understand that in many cases it is in the best interest of everyone to allow for some extension period, of course with interest, rather than to break the company and its business cycle when one or another crisis comes. So in general, I think in the long run we will all be better off, but we advise that for all extensions that we have on the platform, we are calculating interest to our investors.
Yeah, exactly. And just also I see the second question, Dutch and Belgian investors report very little disruption in local business activity. Why has a large amount of AF loans been extended? It's the same reason, because it is live and let live, and we we also do not want to have a reputation in the market that we just kill a business because of whatever. So having said, us extending a loan doesn't mean that we in any way see the risk different than before. All our loans are collateralized. This means, we always make sure that when we do business with clients, that we have enough security in case things would go wrong. We know that we are speaking to clients that they require special conditions, they need special service, but of course we also look after the interest of our funders. So that is where we're good at. We look at, we help our clients with what they have. We look at solutions, how we can get financing done, and then we do it. But it also means that, these guarantees, they don't go. So, if after these 90 days, we would see that, due to Corona or whatever, something has gone wrong and they cannot survive or something, and then we will not extend anymore. And at one stage, we simply will have to secure the interest of our investors and our funders. And let there be no discussion about it. The securities are there. So we will never ever extend something because the conditions have worsened, or people need to be afraid in the way we do business that we all of a sudden have. That's not happening whatsoever. It's just 100% due to current market conditions. Our moral and ethical values basically, request us to have a social stand in this, like anybody else. And give people the time that they need in order to become healthy again and stay healthy.
Okay, so let's move on. Yeah, we're here. Twinero and A40 has been an unfortunate situation for investors. What steps are you taking to avoid offering loans from loan originators with cash flow issues? So first of all, as reiterated before in our earlier webcasts, we are always building and upgrading our credit scoring and credit management policies and the processes. So we are doing now much more constant and reviews than we did before about our loan originators, their financial standing, their shareholders, who they are, how they do business, and what their strategy is, what products they offer. And we discussed with Luc about previously about our strategy going forward. And in general, our strategy is to introduce into the platform more loan originators with more secure and collateralized products, like real estate, like we have with some cases with cars, with other collaterals that would make sure that investors are investing not into thin air, but into some, let's say, secure object that they could, in worst case, could have a claim on. And of course, nevertheless, this business which we're doing here is of course a risky business, and the interest rates reflect in general the high risk of this business. So unfortunate situations are or let's say, yeah, are inevitable, that from time to time in one platform or another platform they will happen, and investors when making a choice will need to decide if they are willing to take that risk. From our part, what we can let's say ensure and which way we are going is that we want to bring as much information as possible to investors, and in as understandable and clear way as possible, so that their investment choice can be done as informed as possible. And this is the way we are going. Is there any update on the loans outstanding with the Forte? So yes.
Can I also add a little bit to what you
sure.
just said,
Sure.
Andrius? Because that is something that we already discussed. Like we don't want to tell other loan originators, and we cannot tell other loan originators how they have to do their business. But we do know that the way we do business at Atlantis and within the Gielen Group, it is proven successful. And we are very strict in the way that we do business, and we can at least, explain also to ViVentor, like the knowledge we have in this particular part of the market, like the alternative finance market, how we do business and how we enter into relationship with our clients, to explain to ViVentor, who have, of course, an enormous expertise on IP and have an enormous expertise in how to run a platform like this, etc. But to from the business underneath it, we can give you more insight on how it can be done, and that is something that you can afterwards use when you are also doing due diligence on new loan originators. So I think the platform honestly will improve as a result of it. The other thing that you said is not completely justified, because when you say and of course, let's say no question about it, but the basis of economics for me is, risk and return always go together. So if you get a high return somewhere, then normally there is also a higher risk. But in the case of this funding, I think part of the high returns that you can now still get on a platform like ViVentor is because it's also unknown. There is no regulator. You're not like a bank. You're not a broker. You're just a platform. What happens if something is, for this being unknown, people also expect a little bit more return. So and that's justified. I think that is completely justified. But that also means that people that enter into this platform on the loan originator side, they need to be able to pay that return. So their business models must be, it must work. We are also going forward. We will look at loan originators that will offer even more security, and we will look at how we can develop that together with the management of ViVentor, and offer afterwards, to investors on the platform. Certain types of business, can be more risky than other ones. Investing in real estate, for instance, I think is seen, especially if you don't go over 70% loan to value. It's very, very low risk. Although it depends, of course, where the real estate is, etc. But we're thinking about maybe developing a little bit more on that side. On the other side, it's also, once there is the regulatory the license in place, I think that will add a lot to the trustworthy of this type of platform, so that the return will go down. So for me personally, I like these type of platforms. I do my research, and I would I advise anyone who does, also if they would invest on any of our competitors, because, I, like everybody else, I would also compare other platforms with each other. I expect other people, investors, to do the same thing, and then you will see that, with what ViVentor has achieved so far, it is quite a secure place to be. But at the end, we're still talking to investors. So as you said, at one stage something can go wrong. But then ViVentor will, for sure, whatever they can in their power, look after the interest of their investors. And there also, going forward, we want to try to build in some more guarantees on the platform, which allows ViVentor, maybe going forward, to look even better after the interest of the investors than they are by the business model there is actually allowed. So yeah, I think in however you look at it, going forward, the risk profile will improve. The returns, probably, my assessment, will go down a bit, but the business will become more familiar. And yeah. Or did I say something wrong?
No, you're perfectly right. So moving on to the next question is about A40. Is there any update on the loans outstanding with A40? As I said previously, we are still in the operational activities of collecting the debt from A40. I cannot go into more details right now due to them being operational activities. However, if each individual investor would like to learn more about what is the status of their individual investment, feel free to contact us directly with your particular inquiry, and we will answer to you, each of you individually, about your investments. But we will not be making any public statements as of now about this case due to, as I said, operational nature of the dealings right now.
Yeah, just a very small thing about A40, because we are quite positive that things will turn out right for the investors. It was known by us, of course, that these problems were in place when we did our assessment. And I can only say, the way that the ViVentor team is handling this, we are convinced that they are looking after the interest in all the powers of the investors. But it's a going case, so I'm also not going to speak for you, Andrius, how you're dealing with this. But of course, we had a look at it. We are aware of it. It was not a surprise for us. We are fully aware of what's happening there, and we are confident that things will be all right. So.
Now back to Twinero again. It has been reported that you have a payment schedule for loans for Twinero. How long before investors see money in their account from Twinero? So yes, we received the payment schedule just now, a week ago, maybe, from Twinero, and now for during all this time we're trying to arrange on a better schedule than we received, because in our opinion it is not the best that this company can do, and it's not how to say, a reasonable offer that they proposed. That's why we are pushing for better conditions for our investors. Basically, what we are pushing for is a shorter schedule, that our investors would receive the money faster rather than later. And of course, the company is also motivated to do that because of the higher interest rates that are applied for the period when they are already late to pay. Of course, the problems they had was also very much related with the coronavirus crisis. But nevertheless, as other loan originators are managing to climb out of this situation, we are also willing to see Twinero doing the same. Just we wish to also see that the while they are doing that, our investors are receiving the best conditions possible and are prioritized as much as possible in their payments to us and to us in comparing us with the other creditors that they might have. So I hope to see first payments coming in from Twinero this month. Today it's middle of the month basically, so within 1 or 2 weeks from now, and hopefully in a very short time the full debt of Twinero will be repaid to us. But more update on that in a few days from now.
Okay.
Another question from Rene: estimated time until you finally receive the brokerage license. So initially we were planning to already be applied to the license by now and to receive it end of summer, but as this coronavirus crisis came, and then we had this dealing with the new ownership, of course, these few months when this was happening, we couldn't continue our application, because the critical part of the license application is the ownership. I mean, who is the owner of the company that is applying for the license, and what profile they have, and what assets and how much capital they have to support the company. So this, let's say, put us a little bit on a delay, but we are already back on track. We submitted major part of the documents that were required. We are updating our business plan, because the regulator also asked to have an update on the business plan in the eyes of current situation of the market and industry. And we aim to file our application, official or already application, within a few weeks from now. Then the review time will come, and I hope to still receive it third quarter this year. But of course, sorry.
Yeah, just a quick interruption, because that is, of course, if you're dealing with a group of companies, people then ask, why Lotus 597 is buying the company, not something else. For us, there was a very clear choice that we want to give the regulator the best possible view of our group. And we want to, it's important for the regulator that they see that there is enough capital, that there is enough assets in case things would go wrong, to support this business. And Lotus within our group, apart from doing investments in fintech businesses, also manages a quite large real estate portfolio. And it is for this reason that we decided to speak to together with the CEO of this entity. We decided that it would be probably the best to put ViVentor directly under this entity, because it will give, hopefully, what we're trying to achieve is that the regulator will get comfort out of all the assets that are present within that particular entity. So that's the reason for the choice of that entity.
Okay. So that's basically it on the brokerage. We will of course keep our investors updated on the progress, and send a special message to everyone once we have finally applied officially for the license, and then we'll update you on the progress. So stay tuned. Another question from, again, anonymous user. It would be great if you also wrote your name once in a while. The crisis has shown the fragility of many loan originators. Will ViVentor partner with larger, solid loan originators to give investors the choice of lower interest but less risky loans? It's a good question, and I think we already touched upon it, that it is in the strategy to direct ViVentor towards more, let's say, calmer waters. And of course, it might impact the interest rates, but nevertheless, it will bring much more stability and surety of investors about the instruments they are investing into. Especially because we also wish to not only have the retail part of ViVentor, but also have among our investors more institutional ones, like investment funds and family offices.
Yeah.
So definitely in the nearest future, our investors will be able to see some, let's say, less risky loans present on the platform, more collaterals, more security, a bit lower interest rates, of course.
Yeah.
Another question from Andrea. Leno and Credissimo are well-regarded loan originators that seem to have disappeared from the primary market. What is the status and plan of the relationship with ViVentor? Well, yes, with Leno, we have a long relation. With both of them, we had long relationships even before my time. With Leno, they are not currently looking for a new funding in particular, so I don't know if they will be coming anytime soon, but we have our partnership agreement present. We will be updating our financials and due diligence on them, so whenever they are ready, they are welcome to come back to ViVentor. Of course, now we have, as you might see on the platform, oversupply of loans, so we need more investments so that there is more competition and more demand, and that's also why some loan originators are not so keen on putting new loans on the platform. Credissimo, on the other hand, is coming back. We are in the process of doing updated due diligence on them, and soon we will see Credissimo back on our platform. More announcements will come sooner, but yeah, stay tuned because they have a new exciting product that they wish to place on our platform. It is a product similar to our loan originator Ibancar from Spain, where they are granting consumer loans with a collateral of car. So it's not for the purchase of the car, but if you already own a car, you can collateralize it and then get a small consumer loan for your needs. So it's again secured products that we are willing to reintroduce on our platform. So stay tuned for that. Any update regarding the promised ViVentor's audited financials? So yeah, we are now in the shopping state. We're picking an audit company that will do an audit on ViVentor for the year 2019 and the review of first quarter of 2020. As you know, ViVentor consists of two companies, one in Latvia, one in Lithuania. So aggregated financials will be audited of these companies. So, and I think it's safe to say that we will be these financials will be available for reading and viewing for our investors as well, because this was a long time request that we never had the time to do, but now I think it's important because it's also a part of the licensing. It's a part of investors' request, and it was also a request from the new owners that we would do a financial audit. So we have a lot of requests, and we finally we'll do it, and I think it will not take too much time to do because the nature of the company itself, despite the platform, is not so difficult. It's online business without any, let's say, I don't know, real estate or anything that would make it difficult to audit or would require evaluation on our balance sheet. So stay tuned, and investors will receive information about the audited financials of SIA ViVentor and UAB ViVentor in Lithuania. Yeah, and I think we reached the end of our investors' questions. So thank you very much for asking them, and I think it was very good questions. I think I wouldn't know if we missed anything or if there is anything else that we might have answered. But if you as a viewer of this blog of this webcast see that you still have some unanswered questions and would like to have them answered, so feel free to contact me, my team, and we will make sure that all of your questions are answered, and that you are, let's say, well informed.
Yeah, myself, I can only say, you know, my whole career I've been in investing. I'm an investment professional, I would say. Be critical, and nowadays, you know, where we are, where the market is now, it was different 20 years ago. Where the market, everything is about transparency, and especially on these in the fintech world, on the internet. Without transparency, this type of business cannot survive. I can only say be critical and do your research. If you have any questions, please be assured that we want to be as transparent as possible about anything within our group. It's important for us that we are a trusted partner for our investors. And that we create value for our investors. So please keep the questions coming. Write on the blogs if you have any questions, and I'm sure that they will come to us via Andrius, and we will always, you know, well, sometimes there are questions that we simply cannot answer, but it has to be a very weird question if we cannot answer it, and we really want to be as transparent as possible about anything, because we want this platform to grow, and we want to make it a success, and we can only make it a success if we make the investors and the loan originators, I speak for both, if we make those that are on our platform successful.
And I think I wouldn't have a better ending speech than you just did. So thank you very much, Luc, for joining me today, and I hope we will see you again on our webcast sometime later. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. I think we are starting to manage our time more and more efficiently every time, so I hope it was not too long this time again. And stay tuned for our next webcasts. We will announce the topic and, of course, the questions sometime later. If you have some ideas or what we should talk about, so feel free to write that in the comments below this video, or just send it to us, and we will make sure that these topics are touched in our webcast. Thank you very much for being with us, being our investors, and stay tuned for more information. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Oh, one more thing, you know, if there's anyone who wants to know more about me or has some personal questions, also, well, I cannot answer anything, or it depends how many questions I get, but feel free to link up via LinkedIn with my person. Just give me a brief message that you saw the webcast and would like to link up, have some questions. If I can help, I will help. So please do so.
Okay, thank you once again, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.